January is something that is, I think everybody kind of looks at January as a new start, a fresh start. So that's the theme for this month. There's always a pilot episode. There's always even in second season, we always look at the first episode as like, what are we going to do differently? And where can we learn from everything that we've done in the past? And so we really wanted to bring that kind of information to you as professionals. Um, to people that might not be in the industry. So Chris here is going to be basically talking to you about what he does at the beginning of any episode for designs wise. So that's kind of conceptual artwork. So I'm really excited to see that.
Hi, my name is Chris Muzyka. I am 20-year veteran of the animation industry, and oh, there we go. I'm now also the presenter of this meeting. Let's see, let's do a little sharesies. Okay, um, here's my screen. Perfect. Yeah, as Lindsay mentioned, we're going to talk today about the beginning stages of the Department of Design and how it all kind of comes together in the beginning from script to being passed off to storyboards and animators and layout artists alike. It's a really exciting part of the process because you're kind of inventing characters, you're inventing worlds that they live in, and it's been a real passion of mine. I started out wanting to be an animator, and I got into design, and my strength was starting to lie with like location design and characters, and yeah, I just kind of went from there. So today, I'm going to break this into like three, excuse me, three stages, and it's basically to sort of give you a rundown on how we develop everything from scratch. And I'm going to start by talking about the concept art stage. And concept art, or we like to call it previs, pre-visualization and look development. So it has all sorts of fun terms. I'm just going to skip into the first slide here. So basically what we're looking for in the concept art stage is we're interpreting script, and we want to make sure that we're working in cohesion with the showrunners, the clients. We want to make sure that we're giving them what they want to basically what they want visually. And so what we'll do sometimes is we'll start by asking them, what is the source material? So you'll want to be, excuse me, I'm losing my voice already because I went for a run earlier. uh, what's the source material? So we want to examine, are we developing a show from scratch, from a pitch, from a script or a treatment? Are we developing this from a toy? Was it merchandise before that, and they're trying to market it as a kids show? Was it a video game? What type of assets do we have from the video game world to look at and sort of jump off of for concepts? Also, is it a children's book? Sometimes, like I've probably worked on about 2 or 3 shows already where we've developed, we've adapted something from a kid's book, and it's working in tandem with the writers is always an interesting process because it's their labor of love, and they don't want to change too much of it. But as I'll go into, when we're developing something for 2D animation, excuse me, when we're developing something for 2D animation, we have to find ways to make it work for the whole team. It has to be production friendly and budget friendly and all that. So I want to talk a little bit about just some of the questions that we ask ourselves as designers. What are the age targets? Are we dealing with preschool? Are we dealing with a tween crowd? Are we dealing with teenagers? Is it an adult cartoon? A lot of the shape language, which I'll get into in the next little stage of the talk, sometimes will help sort of sort out the type of show, the style of show that we're going to be working on. Anyway, what are the core values and the lessons of the project, and understanding the needs of the creator and the client as well, and also that also kind of ties into what type of reference material we're going to be looking at. when we're going to, which leads me to talk about mood boards. Mood boards, if you've heard of them or used them, are great for developing ideas visually. And whether you're using Google Images or you're using Pinterest or you're using a select from books and animation history, and just being inspired by all of the cinema and cinematic art you've seen in animation, mood boards really develop and help become a creative touchstone, and sort of add to, and it becomes a well that you can return to for ideas, from everything from line style to paint styles, texture, lighting techniques, those types of things as well. It's almost like you're creating a storyboard out of like existing artwork that you can be inspired by. So coming up with a really strong mood board um, is always a fun part of the process. I'm gonna, as I'm talking about that, I'm going to jump onto, oh, I've jumped back a bit. I'm going to jump into my lovely little stage here, so everyone can still see that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mood boards that I just mentioned. Here we are, design styles. So you see here, I picked a couple examples of types of things that we'll look for style. I think that preschools generally they tend to lean towards simpler shapes, rounder edges, and then you get into sort of the painterly, texturally stuff and the vectored, hard edge, vectored lined background elements. They tend to be a little bit more palatable for the shows that target the older audiences. And then we can take the mood boards, and the mood board's fun. I grabbed this one. It's a fun little thing. So this is an example of a show that was being pitched, and they were sourcing ideas from known shows from 50, 60 years ago. You'll see some Looney Tunes stuff in there, some UPA animation designs in there as well. So we're just trying to, in the mood board process is just a really fun, it's a really fun part of the process, basically, to come up with some amazing ideas and bounce that off of your creative leads. And that brings me to the next part of that is what we want to try and provide as designers for our team. Um, when you're creating characters or backgrounds or props, I can't stress enough how important it is to provide multiple ideas, multiple sets, giving your creative leads options. Art directors and directors love seeing 2 or 3 ideas on a page on a contact sheet, and it really helps give them an idea of what they can choose. You give sometimes what you want, but you have to give your directors sometimes the impression that they have more control over what they want to see. I know myself, when I create, I have a rule where I create like 2 or 3 options, and I'll try and make one really, really good one, just saying right off the top, to sort of subconsciously push them towards my design. And I won't make the other 2 crap or anything like that, but they'll basically be uh, back background ideas, or sort of like a back pocket idea, but providing rough sketches in the concept art stage and giving your creative leads options is definitely a great start toward providing the end result, which we sometimes refer to in the biz as look targets. Those of you who joined Mark Fortin's presentation yesterday on comp, he may have used that term once or twice. When you're talking to the art director and you're in any creative department in animation, you want to make sure that you're hitting the look target that the art director is looking for, or the director. When you're doing background environments, providing sketches, 2 or 3 options, varying in shape and composition, all sorts of different aspects there. Ask your, be prepared to be asked what your favorite preference is and lead with it, like I mentioned before. Which is going to bring me now into the second. Am I going too fast, Linz?
No, you're doing well. No one's asked
Okay.
any questions. I haven't come up with one yet.
Okay, just wanted to check in on that first, make sure I wasn't talking too fast. Okay, so let me just move my screen here, make it a little bit more readable. Um, Getting into the
This is
second
this is
portion
this is
here.
this is where I'm excited about. This is the one where I'm probably gonna start asking
Yeah,
questions here. So I'm gonna start asking you
okay, yeah,
questions
I wanted
here,
to
and
just
then
sort of
we'll
talk a
learn.
little bit about, yeah, the concept art. So now that we've talked
Yeah,
about that a little bit, sorry?
you're good to go.
Okay, so yeah, shape language and color language in production design. Let's let's uh, let's say that we're starting to round out our concepts, and they're getting a little bit more. Things are getting a little bit more tighter. We probably had about two or three back and forths with our creative leads. You know, we're in take 3 or take 4 of the design, and at this point, you know, if the production schedule is allowing for it, and you can, if there's, you know, a previs or a ramp up stage to design, and you're really starting to develop these ideas, you can start incorporating some fun shapes into your characters and your background elements. And I'm just going to tighten in here. I've plucked some artists who I really adore in the industry. Torsten Schrank, who's worked with Spa and has, of course, done some incredible work for Klaus. He's got a little breakdown sheet of a character he'll work on, and he's breaking it down into some really basic shapes. See down here, some more artwork from another artist here, how they've broken it down into some fun and interesting shapes. This is part of what it creates appeal, and they're really playing with proportion. You're playing with just small, medium, large shapes and variations. Some of the things that, you know, foundationally we learn in school for animation, depending on where you went to school, but you also don't ever stop learning when you're in the biz. And I can tell you that I've still had refreshers and reminders myself, you know, 10, 15 years into the industry, from some younger artists who will present some work, or I'm working alongside them, and they come up with these amazing ways to problem solve for characters. And part of the solution is usually just drawing variations on shape themes, such as here. And as it applies to background elements, you have some fun ideas for trees. You don't necessarily have to make it look like the cutout. I mean, I know for cutout animation, it can be, you want to keep things in the background fairly simple. But if you're in a position where you can have some fun with it in the concept art stage, which is the beginning of design, why not do it, right? And then, of course, I'm going back into my love of Klaus here. Here we go. This artist here has provided a variety of options for some houses for the villages, and you know, I find that any artist who's giving their art directors fun and appealing choices are, you're gonna have a long career in this industry, because if you can show that you're not just throwing one or two things up there and asking opinions, if you have a multitude of ideas at your disposal, then yeah, it's definitely a good tool in your bag for sure. So
I'm
yeah,
curious.
dynamic shapes.
Oh, I
Sorry.
have I have a question. I have a question. It's more of an idea. I really like this idea that you've thrown out here, where it's really good practice to give somebody options for concepts. Would you? Because I know that there's a lot of people that work on concepts all the time, and there's I would say that most of the time I see like one concept. Would you say that a really strong practice would be to take one concept, but then create multiple different variations of that same thing?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think if I understand the question correctly, are you saying, like, if I'm going to draw a house, don't just draw different types of houses, draw the same house, but, like, you know, dress it up with different colors? Is that
Yeah,
kind of what you're
yeah,
asking?
absolutely. Like, would that be it just sounds, to me, it also sounds like an example of like a really fun assignment um,
Hmm.
that you could practice on your own, essentially, if you wanted to be a concept designer or if you wanted to build a portfolio.
Hmm. I mean, these types of practices benefit portfolio. They benefit being on the job and being asked to present, you know, a set of ideas for stage one of concept and previs. So, you know, absolutely, I would never say no to that. The more if you're doing color treatments, yes, I was gonna touch on color a little bit sooner, but the same rule applies. Yeah, I would say you definitely want to give your director or your soup as many options, not too many, as many as you can bang out and still have them look nice. Yeah. Does that sort of
Yeah,
answer that?
you'll get into budgeting, creative conflicting later, so we can talk about that there.
Yeah, yeah, I think, yeah, we can definitely touch on that for sure later. That's what sort of part of the last little tidbit I was gonna address at the end, but it definitely applies. I know that I will, to some degree, contradict myself when I talk about, oh, provide all these wonderful options for your supervisors. Like all we have is time, and I won't be so naive as to think that, yeah, you can just go to job and give them like 18 different houses and populate the village on take one. You're gonna have to start from scratch and maybe give them one or two. I'm more or less speaking about like whatever is within your range of comfort as an artist and how fast you work. And I certainly don't want to um, say that working faster is better because it isn't always. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to really say about that in particular. Um, so just keeping rolling on this and getting into on this whole topic of shape language, it also applies to composition, which is a huge element. Let's see here. I'm seeing questions. Does it include options?
You beat me to it. Yeah, Maurice is asking if that includes giving them the different options, but does that include different styles? So maybe that would be like genres. It's kind of going back to the question I'd asked.
Yes. I think there's definitely the previous stage, I will say for sure, is definitely they're probably not always going to know exactly what style they want to choose from. So if they're giving you some look targets to check out and giving you a mood board to work from, I would say, yeah, you would want to make sure you haven't don't draw everything in the same style. Don't use the same line speed for one prop or whatever. Try and yeah, that's another area where options obviously come into play as well. Yeah. So as we get into more into like the art of composition, I've chosen some more art from some fantastic location designers from past and present who I adore. We want to lead the eye as designers. If you're a location, uh, your eye just wants to sort of your eye generally wants to just focus on the most interesting thing in on the stage. And when you're looking at something, for example, the Bugs Bunny's Maurice Noble is a good one that comes to mind here. I just love the line. It's simplistic line. There's very little perspective. There's perspective, but he's playing with the rule a little bit. Nothing has to be too linear. The looseness of it is just you can tell from this sort of art that he's been drawing like this for 40, 50 years. He didn't just slap this together, even though there's elements of it that look, to the layman that maybe it was just kind of like drawn, I don't want to say by a child, but like it was drawn very simplistically. And then that sort of juxtaposes what we have here on this other side here, where there's a lot of rendering that's been going on here. This Scott Willis background here from, I'm going to say Samurai Jack, I believe. I think this is Samurai Jack. I mean, the language here is the use of um, uh, negative space is just phenomenal. There are some challenges when you, obviously this is more of a conceptual background and probably not final, but this is definitely like a great concept piece. And I know from, if I'm recalling the episode specifically, when they do cut in, there are different and more fleshed out designs for these types of boats here. So this isn't necessarily they have to be the law for this look if you're using this as an example.
Actually,
So
I do have
and
a
then
question, Chris.
go ahead. Yeah.
Uh, You mentioned negative space, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what negative space is. Because
I
actually,
can.
even as myself as an artist, you're pointing in an area that I wouldn't consider negative space. So I'm really curious as to how that's
Right here.
considered negative space in your
Yeah,
opinion.
I think, you know, if it's it's like almost inverse negative space, because basically the stuff, if you can see where my cursor is lying here, so I'm referring to this as negative space. And now in negative space would be, you know, the space within the fill of I'm gonna, here, let's try this. Uh, okay, I did a breakdown with this. Simon Bernanke did this for Klaus, the design of the postal service building from Klaus. And if we did a value breakdown here, for example, negative space as it applies might apply to something like this element here, if I'm breaking this down simple. Um, like here, hang on a second. Dun, dun, dun. Please stand by. So, oh, there we go. So, where's the negative space here? Here. Some would say that like the negative space is in the eyes and the nose of the skull here. And that's kind of what I would describe as negative space. That's kind of I've always understood that as a rule in art. Um, so it would be no different for cinematic art or TV film art as well. Does that sort of help?
Yeah, of course it does. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and just to sort of, and then that sort of just blends into what I was going to say here about like breaking down these backgrounds simplistically and talking about leading the eye. Well, we look at what he's done here. This is just your eye just kind of, there's a natural line happening right here that just flows. And I don't know how conscious or how subconscious the artist is with this, but doing this just constantly and practicing and practicing and studying great artwork, classical artwork and classical cinema really, really helps you understand that, uh, especially with like, you know, high cinema and great animation, short films and feature films, the attention to detail that goes into these shots, it's all planned. And so nothing is out of space, nothing is uh, everything is as it should be, and it's in its right place for the most part. We have that wonderful freedom in animation. You know, you can move a camera around in live action, but because we have to work with parts and we have to work with a team of artists to get this to work, yeah, definitely composition is a very, very important part of the process for sure. And these were just some styles that I thought really illustrated that well. I threw in one from Kevin Dart, who is really going to town with some painterly textures. There's a lot of really cool stuff here. You'll have seen probably many animated shows that employ these types of backgrounds, both feature and 2D and series. So yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that. So let me move on. First of all, let me just make sure I'm in the right slide here. Yeah, so we're here. So we talked about reference material and providing multiple sets. Yeah, we're into shape language. Cool. So as I just find my footing again, I'm gonna get, how does that apply to characters? We just looked at shape language for backgrounds. Pulled some other amazing artwork from some amazing artists. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, let's see, did I miss anything with the backgrounds? Oh, I do want to, just don't want to get ahead of myself on characters. I wanted to talk about one thing for scene planning and for location design. Floor plans. You are going to want to provide floor plans for interior locations. It's a huge part of the planning stage. Your art director, or if you are the art director of your show, you will be tasked with having to find, basically build a floor plan for the main episodic locations for all of your action, because as this is especially helpful to the storyboard artists, who will tell you that it's nice to know when a character walks out of one room, that they know exactly what room they're walking into, because you'll have a set of background designs as part of the pitch, or as part of the Bible, or the um, the yeah, the pitch Bible, and you will have to make sure that it's clear that you've got every element, every room, and every piece of this building covered, and not leaving too much up to the borders to guess at. So I just wanted to hit on that a little bit too. That was really important before we move into the characters, and how shape language and color really get brought out in some amazing character designs here. Okay, so line has speed and weight and emotion. These are things that I learned in animation school, and I continue to learn. I learned so many new things when I was in the industry 5 or 6 years in, and just clever ways to use thin and thick lines, and how to pose your characters in an appealing and fun way. And here we have some amazing artwork from, let's just look at this one here, Luigi Lucarelli, who did this fun little design of Amelia the Witch. And there's just a model sheet of some amazing emotional poses. We really get a sense of the character. We also get a really good sense of the style of the show. This would be a really fun project to work on, absolutely. And even if this is just the artist's illustration for funsies, it just makes me I want to see like an entire episode about that character, or an entire movie about that character. Here we have some more artwork here, just some fun different color treatments on one character, like how many different, there's some subtleties here, but look what he's done where he's removed some of the outer lines and he's gone with self-trace lines. I can get into a little bit more of that. I don't want to be, I'll use a lot of like animation grammar, but please, if a term goes over your head, it's okay. You can ask about that too. I still use the term self-trace line. It might be a bit of an old school term. It's almost, in some cases, refers to as the slightly off color line that is colored darker or lighter than the main fill. And
No,
sometimes
actually,
there's no line. Oh,
if I can just
yep, go
cut into
ahead.
that, really interestingly
Please.
enough, in rigging,
Yeah,
we have self-tracing lines too, but they are lines that reveal themselves as body parts cross over like other body parts. So
yeah,
that's we both have the same words, but for very different descriptions of lines. That's pretty interesting.
yeah. I mean, that's a whole other conversation unto itself. Just talking about like the regional and generational differences in the tech talk, the terminology and grammar that we use in cinema and in animation. There's just so much. So that's a good point. um, yeah, so I pulled some other character examples here from some talented artists here. Alison Donato has done a lovely little pose sheet for her character, and the way she has played with the proportions. It almost it's just a fun, it just seems like a really fun character here. You can see that character is about 2 heads tall, and it's just that's just a fun and appealing design for me, and you can do so much with that. Um, Here's like a little study sheet on a character, again from Torsten Schrank, of an older of one of his characters from Smallfoot, and yeah, I just love expression sheets. Um, they're really the funnest part of art direction and design in general. I really look forward to seeing when I'm an art director, I look forward to seeing what my team can come up with, and how we can push the boundaries of the character for expressions and attitudes. So that's always been a really fun aspect of design, I find. Let's see, where are we at? Yeah, so we talked a little bit about line having speed and emotion and weight. There's been a lot of books written in animation about the key to unlocking the most out of your drawings, and I really can't stress how, if you're drawing nonstop, or keeping a sketchbook with you as you go, and continuing to draw, those types of aspects will pop up into your drawing, and you'll get stronger as a result. character shapes and volumes can dictate they can dictate status. They can show status in the different characters. You know, if I'm going to go back to say, uh, let's see here. No, well, I had a character example. It'll probably pop up later, but to sort of speak to what I had mentioned about the character shapes, textures as well are, especially with backdrops, they always add a really warm tone to the backdrop. I don't always care to add too many textures to characters. I think that further downstream departments like comp and rigging and animation will tell you that working with textures in characters, if you can avoid them, please do, or patterns in shirts. But of course, where we can sort of get away with that is having textures in our backgrounds. I've always found that some of the best, or not best, but necessarily a lot of the more popular 2D animated productions that have the flatter colored characters, they tend to pop really nicely against the textured backgrounds. Yeah, so and also and this I'll speak more to like the challenges of the production later on, but like the 2D animated productions don't always have the bandwidth for creating a multitude of main characters that have textures in them. That's also another challenge that's posed in animation. So yeah, we talked about composition. We talked about environment design, and yeah, just talking about asking yourself when you're designing, do the characters have a fun and interesting, appealing look? And let's see, making sure your background elements have personality. I mean, that I kind of talked a little bit about that in here. For example, this little bush. I love this. I just love the way that shape goes, and I'm drawn towards backgrounds that incorporate elements like that and aren't just your basic, bubble bush as we call them, or like the bubble cloud. You got like that. That's a simple bush for like some shows, but I mean, whenever you can plus it up, as we say, it's always a bonus. So we left off on characters. Okay, lighting. There's been some interest, and I think there's also been some questions in the channel about, lighting characters. And I won't, I will fully admit out of the gate that I don't do a lot of lighting per se. And my experience in the industry has been mostly just doing like the roughs and doing like the flat color and stuff like that. But I wanted to pull some examples because lighting really is kind of the secret sauce. It's the icing on the cake. It's what really makes your concept art or your fully rendered design sing. And I brought some examples to show. Going back to Klaus again. So you can look at the rim lighting on here. That's just, and some of the gradients under the nose, the shading. I mean, sorry, let's see, lighting costs extra in production. The budget has to be there. Absolutely, good point, Lindsay. I
And
am
I
using
think
I am
I know
using
Klaus.
examples of feature films.
You're using Klaus as an example right now, and I do want to, because I used to work for Toon Boom, and we would actually get studios from around the world ask it, because Klaus did use Toon Boom to do their film.
Yeah,
Um, the process was so difficult, and I actually got to talk to a couple color artists that work for
yeah,
Klaus, and I wouldn't say that their job was stress-free. It was so specific and tedious, and we had studios coming from around the world asking, "How do we get the Klaus effect?" And for a year, for a whole year after Klaus
yeah,
came out, we had to talk studios out of the Klaus effect in Harmony because it was so tedious for that studio to pull off. They even put out their own video that we started to pass
yeah,
around saying that it was almost a mistake to go that in depth with their lighting because it was so hard for them to fulfill the whole movie. It was really a miracle that they got it done. It's quite the feat of a project. It's a
yeah,
great example, very extreme.
yeah. Well, you know what? For process, I always like to reach for the top shelf of what's being done out there. But I mean, holy moly, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't
It's
surprise
where
me.
innovation lives. It's on it, and we love it as technical artists. And you talk to
Mhm.
Mark. we want to aim for that height, but we need the
Hmm.
time and the space and the development process and like a little bit of that ramp period to get there. But yeah,
Absolutely. Yep. There's always going to be, um, yeah, well, we'll talk a little, I mean, we're already kind of talking about it. I don't mind like talking about the budgetary aspects as we go, as opposed to waiting until the end, because I really do think that it's good that you point that out as I talk, because yeah, there's going to be, I mean, an artist, a designer wants to come in and just like give you, not necessarily Disney. I don't want to use, you don't have to use Disney as like, you know, the high-end watermark here, but it traditionally has been. And so when you come into as you're an art director, or if you're a lead designer, you want to put your best foot forward. And if you already know stylistically what they're going to be looking for, um, yeah, you're obviously going to want to try for this sort of effect. And then you kind of get told halfway through that yeah, maybe we might have to settle for something less than that. That's okay too. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the process, in terms of what you would like to show for a portfolio, this kind of goes back to we talked about these practices not just for your professional work, but for your personal work and your portfolio. And so I do find that the lighting aspect is also it's an important finishing touch. It kind of it makes your 8 go to a 10, so to speak. So I've got some examples here of just some really good rim lit and backlit like examples of like lighting hair on certain characters in the concept art stage, and how you can. This was an idea from an adaptation from a children's book from I think it was called Hair Love, and there was also an animated short that won. I want to say it was an Academy Award. So this was some development work for that character that was in that show, and I love the process here about how they sort of lit the back end of the hair, because how do you show that hair in certain light? And then you have like a different style here, hard light at the top. That's always kind of cool. Oh, we got some love for the Hair Love short. Nice. Yeah. So lighting just really brings it together. As Lindsay mentioned, your lighting may depend on your bandwidth and your budget. It's a good point. All right. Don't too far ahead here. Let's see where we're at. So yeah, we talked about color and lighting and composition. Let's see. Were there any questions about color specifically? I was gonna jump into the third part of my 3 points, but before I do that, I just want to make sure there's no questions that have been unseen, if there's any questions that have been unseen by me yet, or if there's anything.
there's no questions on my end, but if anybody has some that they want to put into the to chat, go for it.
Okay, well, while we're waiting, or if there's none coming, I'll just tie a bow on that, Ben. Like, we want to make sure we balance I'm going to jump back into
I
one of my
think you're good.
favorite
I
panels.
think you're good.
Sorry?
I think you're good to go.
Okay, yeah, I'm just jumping back into this favorite slide of mine as we finish up the talk on color. Like, uh, color, like composition, has to be balanced. You've got just different lighter tones at the back, having an atmospheric effect. You've got some nice shadows happening here. That's always it's always a really cool effect, I find. The values in let's see, like for example, if I just take the saturation down on this, let me just look at that as a value study. I mean, I don't know if there's too much there that I would fix. I might want to adjust some contrast on it a little bit, but no, for the most part, these sorts of things are just fun to work with. So yeah, color balance, making sure your light direction is consistent throughout most of your work. You're going to if you're doing location design, you're going to want to light your locations for day and for night. You're also probably going to be getting asked to do twilight shots as well. If you're working on an episode on a series that has episodes where they like to have action during the twilight hours, there's always some fun little ways that you can tweak existing daytime locations to to be lit for twilight without doing too much repainting. There's little tricks there. Maybe that might be that's one of those things I just kind of thought of as I was talking, but I didn't really prepare a slide for that, but we can maybe get into that later. So I'll jump into the third part.
We got a question. If I can, before you jump into the last part,
Yeah.
I won't use names. I don't know why. I feel like if people were using the chats normally, we would see the names, but I'm just not gonna use the names. But I have an issue with muted colors. They always seem to be dark and heavy. Is there a best practice for or a way to test paint?
This muted. You're wanting to make your muted tones less muted, or you're looking for a method. Are they working
What,
in
or
Photoshop?
maybe a rule? Like, what is the rule with using muted tones,
Okay.
muted
First of all, I'm
colors?
going to open up my little color wheel, and I'm going to do a little mini muted tones. Muted tones. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't have any. There's nothing wrong with muted tones, but if the person is having a problem, if they feel like their artwork is looking too muted, I mean, boost the saturation. Would that be, or is there? Are you looking for a shortcut? I may have to see an example of what they mean, but yeah, if I know that if I'm having a problem with muted tones, I just kind of boost the saturation on my hues. If that works, if that helps, I don't know. Did I hear the question correctly?
I don't know. I think so. Maybe, I don't know. Darcy, do you want to put your mic on and ask? This might be a conversation question.
So when I paint something, it always comes out looking kind of like gray. I don't know if muted might have been the right word, but it looks
Mhm.
like gross,
So,
basically. It doesn't look colorful.
Muddy is
oh,
usually
Muddy,
a
yes,
word that's
muddy.
described.
muddy. Muddy is
Okay.
the word.
Yeah.
Maybe you're looking for contrast, like how
When
to
I'm
add
okay,
contrast.
I've kind of okay. So I'm kind of again, if I'm sharing my screen correctly, if you see my color wheel here, my HueSat
Yep,
tab
we
in my
see.
Photoshop, I'm kind of circling this area here, and I'm wondering if the question is, or if the problem is, I'm trying to color, but it's looking like it's kind of in this zone here, and I'm thinking if maybe bringing your colors into like this zone here. And for example, I guess if I had to apply it to an existing piece of artwork here, I kind of just did it really quickly by accident on this one, but I'm just gonna, let's see if I understand correctly, you want it to look, you want it to look like this, but it looks like that. Now, is that, if that's kind of the problem, what I would want to do is I would want to boost the saturation. I just reverse what I just did, and what I'll do here is I I work with the saturation. I also have to, if you're using Photoshop, it can be a little picky, but you know, you can adjust your hues as well here. But I also use a variety of different methods. Well, now we're getting like Photoshop methodology, which we can go down a real rabbit hole with that. Um, I may want to say, let's just here, let's put a little bit of darken it up a little bit. Now, I don't know if this quick demo is answering the question, but what I did is I took what I would perceive as being a muddy colored composition, and I injected a little bit of life into it with the color. And I did that because I'm working in Photoshop. Now, if the person who's asking the question is not working in Photoshop, I don't know how helpful that little demo was. um, yeah, like I don't know how it works in Toon Boom, to be honest with you.
That does actually answer the question, Chris. that does
Oh,
answer the question.
okay.
Um, so it's just a matter of playing around with the saturation, like after you colored it,
Yeah,
to
I mean,
to
sorry, go ahead.
to bring in that vibrance back. Like if you find it not to be as vibrant as you like, you just have to kind of tweak the settings.
Oh, 100%. I hope that when you're painting, you are, when you choose a color and you put that down, if it's not what you like when you put down, yeah, going and using, I guess, I use things so often, I don't even know what they're called, but that would be an adjustment. And I'm using the adjustment tool, and I'm boosting the saturation. And in this case, I'm doing this very liberally. Um, you can knock it back, and you can be really, really finicky with it as much as you please. So if that answers the question, great. But yeah, it sounds to me like if you're painting and you're worried that that brush stroke, the color that you choose that you put down is final, it never is. So if I've got that layer of paint that I just selected here, maybe I add a few more different tones to it or something like that. If that feels a little too drab, I'm like, well, I put that down, but that's not final. Then with that layer selected, and I go into the hue saturation, and I boost. Is it showing up there? Yeah, I boost. I'm going to boost it big time just to really um, hit the point home a bit, just because if I do it really subtly as I do when I work, it doesn't always show up on the screen. Plus, I don't know if the true color that I see on my end is what you see on your end, because everybody's monitors are different. And when it comes to color, holy cow, there's a little issue that we
That's
sometimes
a
run
lesson.
into.
That's a lesson. That's actually probably a whole year's worth of lessons, actually.
Yeah, color correction on monitors, right? How many
Yeah,
problems
yeah.
has that presented to different productions over the course of the last decade alone? But I'm glad that I answered the question.
But
Thank you,
I
Darcy,
do
for
have
that
another,
question.
we do have another question, but before I get to that question, somebody actually jumped in and said my chat kind of blew up. But somebody said that they usually limit their palette, and by limit they mean keeping it near a specific hue for the most part, which I think is what you just did, Chris.
Yeah,
Um,
I I live.
and then yeah, they used maybe two colors and then more saturated colors as accents. Um, but that could be style specific.
Yeah, it could be. I know that you know I there is a color theory term for this, and someone might actually say it, but when you're working with color, it's nice to have um, a muted tone and some accent tones in there. Accent tones. Oh, that's not right. Now I'm just going to bring in these colors. Don't necessarily work that well together, but as an example, if I drop this, and I can see that the data in here shows that my green is in this range here, and then I look over here and I drop this brown, and you can see that it's here in the middle. I want to here. Let me try something. Oh, that doesn't work.
Is the term analogous?
Sounds close.
Analogous?
Yeah, it sounds like something I learned in school a long time ago.
I'm not sure.
um, if you can see where my cursor is hovering, I am wanting to stay in this area. If I'm designing background art, we want to stay a little muted for background, not too saturated. Obviously, unless you're doing an establishing shot where you want the background to be the star of the show, you do want to keep your colors fairly mid-range muted, because you're going to have characters in the stage, and your characters are going to want to pop a little bit or a lot, and you don't want them to get lost in the background. And so there's going to be contrast, and there's going to be color blocking in some shots which is a whole other stage of comp, where you're color blocking in a character, making sure that the characters can be seen um, against the backgrounds. So we sometimes run into problems where we'll have some characters with some skin tones, for example, that look just like the mochas or the browns in some of the backgrounds. And so these characters pass through these backgrounds, and when the directors are doing their rough cut and they're looking at the cut, they're going, why am I not seeing the character? So do we need to boost? Now, you never want to go and alter the character colors because the characters are usually locked, but we have to sometimes go back and like change the backgrounds and put a filter behind so that we can see these characters better. So that's one of those things where color can be a very nitpicky issue. So I'm glad that they asked that question. Did I answer that about the muted tones?
Yeah, I think so. I think you did a great job. We have one more question, and then I'm going to suggest that we get through the rest of your slides because I don't want to take too much time off the feedback portion. But we do have one more question that came in, and Piper's going to talk. They're gonna put their microphone on now and ask.
Sure.
Yeah, I initially worded this a little awkwardly, but I was just wondering when you're starting a production from scratch, what does the conversation, in your experience, what has the conversation with the director looked like? Like, are they telling you specifically, oh, I want this scene to have this really like cool and then shifting to warm, or are they giving you more of like a broad general sense and having you just kind of like go in and have like a pretty free range of how to interpret that?
Great question. That conversation has been, for me as a lead designer and as an art director, has been different on different shows. There are hands-on directors and showrunners, and there are hands-off people. And the hands-off people will, sometimes that's great because they give you the full reign to sort of bring the color palette that you want to bring to it. They hire you for your style. But the conversations that I've had with directors about the beginning stages of concept has usually ranged from they bring a set of ideas and they'll bring a handful of shows and say, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Did you see that? We love that. We want this show. We want the characters in this show to kind of be inspired by that. Be inspired by, the Iron Giant. They'll bring a lot of existing IP to the table and say, these are some shows that we'd like to um, try and mimic. And these are some shows that we'd like to stay away from. There, you also are given sometimes a set of rules that of things that you should stay away from because they, for example, I worked on a couple of shows that were for Mattel, and Mattel and Hasbro are competing brands. And if Hasbro is doing one thing, the showrunners and the directors will say Mattel wants it to stay as far away from uh, Hasbro as possible. In terms of like specific, there's all sorts of little conversations that happen about what they'd like to see as the design process starts. But I mean, we can definitely answer that more in specific, maybe later down the line in one of the design channels for sure, because just off the top of my head, there's just been so many different conversations. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of the art director and the director are always or should always be communicating at all times about the way things need to be, the way things are going, and because the director is the one that has to make all the departments kind of work in harmony creatively. So I hope I kind of answered some of that question. It's a great
Yeah,
question.
definitely. That's a really interesting thing because I have heard of directors like giving specific um styles from shows, but I had never like even considered that they might like, hey, this is a show that we want to stay away from. So that's really interesting to hear about.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I would say that it's almost, and I'll just put a bow on that. I'll say, yeah, they are sometimes when we're working with brands specifically, there is a sensitivity to stay away from more things than there is to be inspired by, if that helps. Sometimes it's kind of it's a bit of a handcuff to the creative process, but it does challenge you to come up with a lot of really interesting and fresh ideas. So yeah.
It's it's easier to it's easier to be negative sometimes too, and to say like what you don't want than what it is to say if you could almost apply that rule to anything. It's in
Absolutely.
general, sometimes it's a lot harder to point out and be verbal about what it is that you do like about something. It's like you can't put your finger on it, but you don't like it. So
Yeah, yeah,
it applies
totally,
to the creative process everywhere.
totally. Okay, well, great question again. Now, Linz, did you say you wanted to take a micro break, or did you want me to jump into my third and final bit here?
Can we, I don't want you to rush through it, but we do need to wrap it up so that you can get to the next
Okay.
page or the next thing. And we do want to take a 2-minute break, so it's only 2 minutes.
Okay, well, the third and final portion of this little tidbit is not too long, thankfully. So yeah, great. So yeah, we're just as we're finished up the topic on shape language, we get into the sort of the final render portion of it. And what I wanted to talk about on this little final point of the three main points was the challenges to the process, but also we actually kind of touched on the challenges, and there's so many more that we could, but I wanted to talk a little bit about supplementary material. And once you've gotten past the previs and the look dev, and you've hashed out the shape and color language of your production design, you're going to want to, and all that stuff is now, you've got locked characters, you've got locked location designs. You now know what your cohesive look is for your show. Well, what's the next stage? Well, you have to build a library, you have to build stock, you have to build a pitch pack, you have to build what we affectionately call the Bible of the show. So how each element looks and how it looks in different stages. So that's kind of where we get into things like expression sheets and pose sheets and bolstering your library and providing more material that can be used for boards and animation. And this can include rotations and expressions, like I mentioned. I also mentioned hand charts already. But it can also include background elements such as buildings. Let's see here, I'm gonna jump out of this little part and go back to my lovely little slide here and talk a little bit about alternative options. So here we have wardrobe and hair exploration. We have some characters here that have, we wanted to explore different types of hairstyles. And once we have those hairstyles figured out, we want to get into the look of the character has been decided. And here's a character that we did for a show a few years ago. And we applied some rotation. We want to see what she looks like from different angles. We want to see what these characters, in this case, the poses, we're not concerned about dynamic poses. We're just concerned about making sure that the character can be broken apart for builds later on. And then we get into some expression charts as well, because we want to see what these characters look like in different states. And we don't have to go full color for those, because these are more for board artist reference than anything. And then as I talked more about libraries, we have, let's see here, building a stock library as you go. So yeah, populating the world. We talked a little bit about backgrounds and background elements like trash bins, park benches, lampposts, hands as it applies to characters. Building a hand library, oh my God. I mean, I know how they do it in Flash and a little bit how they do it in Toon Boom, but having not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be a built set of hands, but just a sheet of hands to see how hands look at certain angles. Trees, as a background artist on several projects, I can tell you having a boatload of trees to plug and play it just creates a world of comfort, if I could say. It's just, it's one of those parts that when you have to design, and then you get into the later stages of the episodes where you're basically just reusing and repurposing elements, the layout departments, I know BG layout in particular, background layout, love when we have libraries populated for them. Even some simple, subtle things like clouds. So yeah, just having like a few clouds that you can just pop into your shot, giving your downstream departments those types of things. Yes, yeah. Lindsay says this is why knowing how to draw hands and shoes are so important. Oh my God, shoes! Shoes are one of those things that I didn't think would be that difficult to draw, but yet they are. You have to always kind of start with the feet sometimes for like how your character's gonna stand and how it's gonna be positioned. And once you get down to those shoes, it's just like now I have to figure out what type of shoes this person wears. And hands have always been the bane of my existence, and I know I will not be the first or last artist to ever say that. And I do enjoy drawing hands, but I never feel like I get it right. So you are not alone out there if you struggle with hands. Yeah, so stock libraries. Definitely something that is very important as supplementary material towards the tail end of the process of design. Redressing characters, like we talked about, wardrobe, different wardrobes, different hairstyles, different outfits. As it pertains to backgrounds, we redress and repurpose existing stock elements and stock locations for special parties. If you've ever watched any show on TV, you'll see, they have a party in the living room. Well, it's the same living room, but the design team has to go in and design all those decorations. Then there's the seasonal changes. We talked a little bit about lighting your locations for night and day and twilight. Well, you also have to redress your show for, sometimes if it's a long running show, you're going to want to have what's the neighborhood going to look like in winter versus spring. Now, I didn't prepare a slide to show that example, but I feel like that's something that you're all watching cartoons of, that you all know kind of what I'm talking about there. You want to make sure and have
There's
cover all your
always a holiday.
bases.
There's always a holiday episode. It usually has snow
Yes,
somewhere.
exactly, right. And like the Halloween episodes are always the
Halloween,
best ones.
fall. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of yeah, the tail end of this. I do want to just say there's so many other aspects that design gets to touch on a production, and some of them are really fun, like title cards. If some of your favorite cartoons probably have title cards, one of the funnest jobs I've ever had in design is doing title cards. And I did it very recently. I worked on Polly Pocket and I got to do some amazing title cards for a fun show. I always thought that the title cards were some of the coolest things to look forward to, from Ren and Stimpy to Bugs Bunny. And, even, yeah, there's just always some really cool ideas out there for title cards. I always like the painterly versions. It was always a way to like redress the style of the character, because you could sometimes do a more graphic style of an existing character. So there were fewer rules when you're working with a locked design. Yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to touch on for that. And as I mentioned, this third portion not wasn't going to last for too long. I didn't want to. I think I used up a lot of time talking about this first few things. So if I just talked about the notes, well, I didn't talk about the notes process, but that might be more of a question for one of you asked a question about like the discussions with the directors, and I mean, obviously there's notes involved there. We can talk about that more in the feedback process as well, because the feedback that I give can be very similar to the process of giving notes, can be very similar to the professional practice, the professional way of getting notes as well. I'll try and make it as genuine as I can, but yeah, so we talked about stock libraries, and I didn't touch too much on file management, but I do want to stress, probably like the tail end of this will be your working files and what you're rendering and outputting to once it's been approved to the next department. Please make sure and layer and label your layers. It's yeah, label your layers and make sure you're
File
layering your
management.
working files.
Oops, sorry. File management is probably the number one thing that people can do today to start improving their workflow, and that goes for any department. When I work with demo reels, that's the first thing that I explain, is that if your demo reel is submitted and they've said, we want you to submit it in this format, if your demo reel doesn't fit that format, they are automatically going to assume that you don't know how to file you don't have file management, and they will actually just cut you from the ranking to make it easier for them to find the person that they do want to hire. So file management is actually very key in the process of animation, and if you are struggling with files, that's something to start practicing now. And we're actually going to have a class specifically for file management, but that's going to be in the freelancing when we get into the freelancing month. So we will get into that one.
Excellent. Great point, Linz. I don't have too much more. I feel like I just kind of wrapped up there. Did you want to take the break now?
We could do a micro break if anybody has a quick question they want to show in, but
Oh,
I'm going to stand.
questions first. Yeah.
If anybody's got a question, to throw that in the chat, and we'll take the break now. So you got 2 minutes. My clock says 10:10, which is consumer time. Fun fact: if you look at any advertising Clock, it's usually on 10:10 because it's symmetrical and it looks nice. Um, so it's a weird advertising fact for you. But yeah, take a quick break. I'm gonna stretch my legs because this chair is uncomfortable, and then we'll get back into the feedback portion. And feel free, everybody can kind of jump into the Discord, and you can go over these files with us. We'll be using this format to kind of give the to go back and forth, and Chris will keep sharing his screen and doing his thing, but feel free to follow along whether you're on Discord or just watching the screen. It'll be the same.
Okay.
I kind of like rolling the Discord as we do it.
Okay.
Just doing like stretching my
Yeah.
hamstrings. Oh, yeah, there's a couple people that have left, and again, like if you reach out, I can give you the link to rewatch this presentation. Have a good night, you guys. Or ladies, actually, those two were ladies. All right, down to the last minute. We do have a question, Maurice. How long is the design process? How much time will you have for concept art? I'm going to add concept art to make it more specific.
Okay, I actually see that question, and maybe it's because I popped out of my screen share, but yeah, I see. The question is, how long is the design process? How much time will you have? Okay. Well, the design process, the process is the schedule of, is dictated by the schedule of the show. And that really depends. So for example, I'm working on a current project right now that is giving us about 2 months of ramp up time. We call it ramp up. It's pre-viz and look development stage. These are the weeks where we do all of the things that I covered in the first part of the talk, which is concept art and rough and getting the shape and the style language of the production. And it really depends on the budget, but we've got like, I'm using my current project as an example, 8 weeks. So we've got about 8 weeks. It's myself, my art director, and another character designer. So there's a team of 3 of us for a show, an 11-minute show. It's got 70 episodes, and that's the length of the previs and look development. But then the episodes start, and this is a 2-year contract. And so, your question, how long is the design process? Well, the concept process that we're in right now is about 8 weeks for this show, and design, it's like having to design off of a new script. We go basically for 2 years. We go along with the episodes. So yeah, that question has an asterisk of like, what style of or what type of production are you working on? And I've worked on shows where the design process was 9 months. I've worked on it where it's 2 months. Yeah. But then freelance, where I have a week to do a handful of assets for the show, and it's usually like 2 or 3 backgrounds, and then that's it, and then it's done. Yeah.
Okay,
Good question.
let's get to the meat and potatoes. And let's go through the Discord channel and answer some questions. And if you can give some feedback on some of this work. I see a lot of questions that are very similar to everybody always wants to know how it looks. And I think,
James,
Chris, you're going to be the best person.
can I just real quick, we're going to go into the art and design channel, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here with you now. I'm following along. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you want to share your screen? And so, if I don't know if you're gonna be doing drawovers with Photoshop or is what are they?
Yeah, I can do that. Or just a second before I do that. So I am going to go through the art and design, and we're going to go through art and design channel, and I'm going to, okay, let me just select.
Yeah, and then scroll all the way to the top, and we'll go through, and you can talk about the ones. We have a lot of submissions for art and design, so I'm gonna say this right now. We don't have the time to go through everyone, but Chris is gonna do the best where he feels that It's going to make the biggest impact for like everybody. So,
Okay. So if I'm going all the way to the top, we're
yep,
getting
got a fiery redhead expression sheet. I think that's the first one. Oh, no, that's
the
not the
one that
first.
I'm seeing is from January 2nd. Fiery redhead? What? Where?
No, that was middle. My thing stopped loading and I got stuck.
Oh,
So I jumped all the way to
I
the
just want to
top.
make sure we're on the same page here. I'll start sharing my screen when I.
I've got like an Atlantean, dreadlock,
Yeah.
white,
Okay.
white
This is my
hair.
current portfolio. I'm hoping to add more stuff and get some tips and advice. Okay. Well, that is a general question.
What I recommend doing is
Mhm.
I'll read the questions, and
Okay.
if you want to copy screen capture and put that on your screen, because right now we're looking at your Photoshop, which is what I'm assuming you want us
You
to
should be
look
seeing a
at.
blank canvas. Yeah, because I'm going to import the stills into there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think a lot of this is like putting the structure onto the designs. That's what I would think. That's the majority of people's questions. Like I know that that's what they're looking for, and other
Hmm.
design tips that you might notice.
Okay. There's an awful lot here. So, um, like I basically have to pick. Okay. So, oh, that's not it. That was my old screen capture. Nope, that's not it either. Hang on a second.
Yeah, that's true. Somebody's just put up, and I noticed that too. This the one that is at the very top. They also have another one lower down, so we can go to. They redid it, so we can probably
Oh,
skip the very first one. You're gonna start with this one, okay?
sorry.
Nope, nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, just a sec. Okay, so if I could bring this into Photoshop. Hmm. Sorry, Lynn. I thought that the feedback was like in people live in the chat, showing work in the chat. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to go off of the channel because there is a lot of stuff here. Okay. Um,
No, you're doing great.
Let me get my red pen out. Let's see here. Okay, so this, first of all, we have to say this artist is asking, um, would love to know what I could improve upon in terms of presenting in a more production-ready way. Well, okay. Uh,
I'm seeing a lot of things here that you were talking about. They've got the hairstyles, the clothing styles, um,
yeah,
similar
and I've
poses.
only, yeah, I've only grabbed the first, let's see here. No, sorry, I'm having, okay, well, let's start with this, for example. Here's what I love about this. You've got a different variation on the wardrobe for this character. Different hair, generally the same pose, which is great. But if you wanted to bolster this, um, since I don't see too much necessarily that I would change about the actual design, what I might say the next stages for this is, I don't really have a draw for this except to just speak on it and say, um, I would do some poses, some more poses with this character. I would investigate or explore what this character looks like with different facial expressions. For example, right now you have got it's a doll or a mannequin that has been dressed up, and for wardrobe exploration, I love it. I absolutely love it. So what I would do now is I would start to take it into expressions and poses. And that's pretty much all I would, if we wanted to keep moving in the interest of moving forward, that's all I would say on this one so far. Does that help? We'll move on to the next one. Here,
Yeah.
let me just dragging the Discord channel into here so that we can kind of look at this together. Let's move on to Brianna. She wants, I'm just kind of parsing through this, she wants guidance on how to push her designs more. Okay, so let's look at this one. Here you've got some poses. She's kind of rotated here. You're covering a lot of bases with this character because you are showing what the character looks like from different angles. You've got a little bit of several different expressions. And I would say the next stage of this is to take it to color. Now, if you're already working on that, great. Same thing here. You know, I would ask the question, how is this going to animate? Because there are some designs that look great when they are just posed standalone, but there's not, in that character's case, I don't see any dynamic movement opportunities here for this character. So I might want to break the character apart, draw through it, like break it down to its basic shapes, and then ask yourself, do I just want to draw this character for the sake of showcasing, or do I want to draw this character for the sake of animating it potentially? And if I'm animating, I may want to, let's see here. I was going to do a draw over, but basically rounding off the shapes of the shoulders a little bit. There's a lot of hard edges and sharp shapes here that are kind of bugging me a little bit if I'm just being super picky. But yeah, that's what I would do with that one.
Would you, like earlier you mentioned something about power poses, and what I'm noticing about this character, like the female's really assertive and the guy's very he's like obviously nervous.
Mhm.
And he's stiff as a board, and I think that the
Mhm.
sharp shoulders really give that stiff as a board feel. Like I
Yeah.
can definitely feel the tension in his body. Do you think that there's a different way that you could promote that kind of a look? I know are usually also like reserved for the bad guy, so I am always looking for sharp, evil characters. Where I'm
Mhm.
not sure if a nervous Nelly would be considered sharp or.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Linz. Stiff is a good way to put it. It's if I guess here, let's put my money where my mouth is here. I was saying, let's draw it. I might round some corners off a little bit. Maybe, we've got him standing very, very stiff and rigid, and maybe maybe he looks scared, but I mean, we can still have, I might just round some of the shapes off here, honestly. I get that you want to show that the jeans are baggy, but maybe the overlap has a little bit more of a round. I don't see the point in really having this be such a sharp edge. I wouldn't do that. I would probably round that off and have it flowing a little bit more. Try and get your silhouette to read, the silhouette of the character to read. I might actually have the arm out from the body a little bit there on that pose. Better, sharper silhouette. Okay. I don't want to speak too much to saying that you should round off the corners of the chin, because these are artistic choices, and if you want that character to have that sharp edge, that's great. But I think if you're to, make this character's shape a little bit more, let's just draw it a little bit more traditional. And I'm not in any way saying that you should change it to this style, but when I draw through, I like to have just employ a little bit more of a looser, quicker line. Yeah, I think what I'm liking here in this change is to have the shoulders a little bit more rounded. That's all. I mean, And also, and I guess since I don't know what to do with these drawovers, but if we're recording, is that pretty much, does
Yeah,
that
that's
suffice
good.
for that?
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, well,
Yeah,
I can.
we gotta go. We gotta do more, if that makes sense. So,
There's so many.
so yeah,
Next
that's perfect.
one. Um,
And
okay.
I will say, Bree, you can you should take this and put it into the animation channel as well. Have our animal, our animal, have our resident animal, have our resident, our mentor animator take a look at that, and he'll be able to answer questions that Chris actually just put up, where he said, I don't know if this would animate well. Lube Key, our mentor, will be able to answer that question, and feel free to post this lineup in that channel as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So this person is looking to break into character for design for TV animation, and tips and direction for my portfolio as a whole so that I can prioritize accordingly and have a strong sense of direction this year. So basically they want, are there any blind spots that I seem to be missing across my work? Um, okay, well, let's look at it first of all. And I apologize if my copy paste is leading to this being very pixely, but it's good enough for what I can see now. What you're displaying, what you're showing here is an ability to draw hands, and you're also showing characters at multiple angles, which I think is really strong. You've got a lot of strengths here. And in terms of where we could improve this, geez, off the top of my head,
If it stumps you, that's a good thing.
yeah. And I would say to this person, just a second. Was it again? No, that's the different. There's Discord. Um, yeah, I I might plus up your expressions here. I would definitely provide more than 4. If this is your portfolio, you've got a good start. I might see what the character looks like, angry, and try a few more happy or surprised expressions as well. Great lineup here. These are some pretty intriguing characters. Love it. And again, not too much there. This is on the right track here. I would have more, maybe try a different, try not different, but like add to this cast here. I like this cast. I'd like to see some more characters here, some completely new and original characters alongside these ones. And that's pretty much it for that one. Sophie, moving along here. She is interested in VizDev, BG layout, paint, and character design. So is there anything global that's glaring that I need to improve or stand out among other internship candidates? Is there a
This
skill
one made
missing?
me think of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs a
Yeah,
lot.
this one here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
all those fish.
Sophia, uh, very nice. These are looks like screen caps
Yes,
from
I
their
asked
website.
if I asked anybody that was posting a link to actually be posting screenshots of
Hmm.
the links
No, that's good.
on their website instead of you flipping through the links.
Correct, correct. Yeah. Okay, there's a lot of fun creativity here in the backgrounds. I think if they are doing VizDev, I might want to see some rougher drawings. I can almost see it here. They've got a mood board here, and where I'm circling, if there's more there, again, there might be, but the screen caps might not be displaying it. I'd love to see some more rough art from anybody who is interested in VizDev. There was a question that said post that question in the Discord. There's a question
Don't
in the
worry about
chat.
that. Don't worry about that.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, for Sophia, I would just say, yeah, more rough artwork if you're in visual development, um, on top of what you already have, which is great. I really like the locations too. Props. Props to your props. Very nice, very nice. Oh, this is a real busy one too. That must have been fun. Yeah, yeah. Okay, moving right along. Kyle, who's hoping to get into the industry as a character designer. Okay, as well as what could I be doing better with my designs? Don't want to put too much in. So here's a few. Appreciate any feedback. Okay. Hmm. Lovely. Yeah, there's some really appealing poses happening here. I'm really intrigued about that character and why she's brandishing a gun, but I would love to see the story behind these characters, and that's always a good thing. Um, Great rotation. I might say I can't pose the rotation because it's animated, but I would say check your volumes on your rotation here. There's I can tell just I can't stop it but I can tell from looking at it that there's some volume differentials in the profile view as opposed to the straight on and 3/4 views. Um, that's nitpicky. Those are some really great wrestling poses like that. Um, yeah. Yeah, more of this. So
I
here's what I'm
like
going to
this.
say. Whenever
I
I see
like this
something,
guy so much.
yeah, when I see something strong, if somebody wants help with something, but I would say, okay, concentrate on your strengths. So exploring this character or characters like it that have some elasticity to them, you're really showing a really good sense of it's an interesting pose right there. I like that. Expression and just some fun poses. I would try to find some more dynamic poses. Maybe him up in the air jumping off the turnbuckle or something like that. Um, but yeah, I mean these are great. These are great. Maybe for her, geez, I don't know. Might want
I
to
was wondering,
see.
like, I look at these and I think the same thing. Like, I want to see this TV show really bad. I think they're two different TV shows. I don't think that she's part of the wrestling one, but both of them, I'm always interested in seeing a strong female character and even a villain.
Yeah, yeah,
There's not a lot of, I mean, there's Cruella de Vil, obviously, but there's not enough women characters. I think Harley Quinn, that show just came out, but like I see this and I'm like, I'm peaked because there's just not a
yeah,
lot of this.
yeah,
But do
yeah.
you see any volume changes? Like I look at this and I wonder about the eyes and her pupils. Maybe it's so subtle though, and I'm almost like this could be the style, and she's got like she's kind of got that crazy flair, which it could work. But from a designer's perspective, what do you think?
It can work. This feels like this would be like a pet project. If you were to take this into production animation, there would have to be some changes made. There would have to be some round. The proportions are very stylistic here. You know what? There's a great question that was just posted, and I'll get to that in a second. Um, but the area here, I would probably watch the proportions in the hands a little bit. It feels like her hands, like more specifically her fingers. I know you're going for them wedging your fingers out a little bit more and like having them look thicker and rounder at the edges. But then I see some sharper shapes on like the hand pose of her holding the gun. I'm being really nitpicky here, but I really like this, and I think the only thing I would change for the sake of doing like a TV production on it would be rounding out some of the edges a little bit more to make it a little bit more animation friendly for a um, for an animated production. But great. Okay, I want to get to this question. Yes, I don't know. So myself and maybe even Mark Fortin yesterday may have said plus up. Plussing up something is basically just boosting it, making it better. You're, it's just enhancing. Let's just keep it simple. Plussing up
I
is
would,
enhancing.
and I think that an example of plussing up something,
Mhm.
is the wrestler with the tan line. That tan line, unnecessary, totally unnecessary. However, it pluses up that character like to the max, and it even tells
There's
a
a story
story.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a plus up.
yeah, excellent. Thanks for that question, and always good to hear some people um, asking about like um, animation grammar, as we call it, just like shop talk. Okay, moving right along. Riley. Ooh, that's lovely. A little bit of a character breakdown here. More anime looking ones are in my D&D campaign, and the cartoony ones are for a comic I'm planning. Would love to hear your thoughts on these as well. Well, I would obviously, since I know from your description here that these are for a comic that you're planning, I don't tend to give too many animation or art direction based notes on comics, because if you were doing your own comic project, then your artwork, if it's satisfying you, then it's good to go. I don't want to create obstacles when there doesn't need to be one. But you have, for example, here some palettes that you're working with here, and I really like the way you're thinking like an animator or an artist or even a comic book artist, because you're showing some expressions. And if you want to do a comic book with these sets of characters, I don't want to throw up any roadblocks there. I think you're on the right. I mean, if you were to say, like, I want to do this character for an animation production, I would say, yeah, we've got to flesh out the line. We've got to solidify some of the expressions in the face, and just the paint and the line aspect has to be a little bit more fleshed out. But these are concepts, and they're concepts for what you're saying is a comic book. So, I mean, just keep on keeping on with that one. Let's keep scrolling along. Here we go. Rose?
Yeah, there's a color version of this expression sheet as well. That's the fiery redhead that I noticed.
Okay.
Hmm. If you want, I don't know if you want to jump to that one or keep going and we'll get to that one.
You mean this one? No.
Well, no, there's a full expression sheet with a lot of the redhead.
Okay. I'm. I
It's
don't
down
know.
quite a ways. Don't
Oh.
it's not included in this. They reposted twice.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
I may have missed it when I went through here the other day, but yeah. Huh. This one
that's the one.
or this one? Yeah. Okay. Expression sheet. So now that I've scrolled all the way down, I'm trying to. She just wants suggestions on how to improve the expression. Okay.
Well, maybe explain a little bit about keeping a character on model when you're doing an expression sheet, because I think that's a lot of people are asking how to improve, and that's the one that I see, but I'm not the
Yeah.
person to give those notes.
So my traditional instruction in animation, when I'm designing a character and I'm doing a sheet and I want to keep everything on model and keep volumes as consistent as possible, I'm interested in breaking this character down to its basic shapes, and I'm drawing through it. I'm putting out the crosshairs to make sure that if the ear is up here and this shape is representing the hair here. Let's see, she's kind of shrugging her shoulders in this expression. Once I start to establish where the volumes are, that might help. Let's see here.
And as a rigging artist, I'm gonna add a technical tip that I do because I don't draw. I don't draw at all. I trace. And so what I've learned to do through
Mhm.
rigging is I'll do what Chris is doing once, and then I copy and paste the shapes over everything, and then I just kind of tweak
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
And that's my workaround for not being able to draw very well. I
mhm,
just use the shape tool and copy and paste my artwork.
yeah.
And that keeps
Good
everything
point.
on model.
I would say that for this one, I know that perhaps the hair is supposed to be coming in front of the head here, but I feel like at the angle that this character is drawn at here, I'd want the hair to be behind her forehead, and I'd want to see her forehead here. So what I might want to do for this pose is I might want to have her also. I might want to have that hair out like that. Let's just work with this pose for a second and say, if we're keeping the eyes and the nose and the mouth proportionally where she has them in her sketch, what I want to do to plus this up or enhance is maybe flesh out the placement of the, is she wearing glasses? She is wearing glasses. So I want to make sure that those glasses are being seen on her and not just sort of half drawn, because yes, this is probably a concept, but if this is supposed to be fleshed out, you would want to draw through those, complete those glasses, complete the shape of those eyeglasses. That's all. And without deviating too much from where you have your mouth, nose, and eyes, just basically, making sure that there, she didn't lose any. Because here it just kind of looks like her forehead is sloping a bit. Because even if the hair, if it isn't that, and it is in fact the forehead is behind the hair, something more appealing about this look of having and more depth to having the forehead here and the hair coming down like that. For me personally, that's just what I think.
I'm noticing too that the hair is actually different styles in a lot of these poses. And for if
Yeah,
I was to rig this, it'd be very difficult. I'd have to make multiple different hair shapes. Um, and
yeah.
so her hair is flipped on the one side.
Hmm.
See, it's an asymmetrical design. So the hair is flipped on this side.
Hmm.
Um, and so d depending on which drawing I'm looking at, sometimes the hair is flipped on this side. And then sometimes I can't see the flip. So like the artwork's like erased. And so it just
Hmm.
looks like a little overlap line. But for rigging, that would cause a lot of problems. So that's something that you want to consider when you're making expressions. You want to make sure that your asymmetrical characters are always, that's what we call on model.
Yep. Yep.
So
On
the
model
hair,
didn't get used much by me in this speech, but it's definitely that's another shop talk term that you're going to hear if you haven't already heard it in your animation travels out there in your career, school, that you're going to hear that a lot. On model that's the war cry for a lot of designers. So yeah, I'm just sort of placing the character's hair here because, as Lindsay mentioned, there's with asymmetrical hair, and a lot of the best hairstyles are asymmetrical. So there isn't. We didn't talk too much about symmetry and asymmetry in design, but um, generally everything that is looking same on both sides, or twinned, as we sometimes call it, it's a bit of a no-no. It's too flat or too boring, we find. So these types of asymmetrical shapes and these hairstyles here that she has are much more interesting. Might drop that down a little bit. Speaking of asymmetrical, this portion of the hair here, we define it as being right there and then pinned behind the ear there. Also, these sort of tufts of hair in her sketch, they kind of just sort of emerge from the shape of the back of the hair. And I might want to, if we want to deal with that, if she's got some strands coming down, if they're intended to do so like that, I might are they coming from behind the ear? Again, is it pinned from behind the ear? I might actually do that, but then as I draw that doesn't look so great. So maybe we just, I don't know, I won't spend too much time on this one specific drawing, but the takeaway should be watch your model, watch your volumes and the different shapes that make up the different parts of the hair, because you don't just have one hair shape. Your hair is, if it's parted, if you have any style of hair short of being bald, your hair has probably 2 or 3 different shapes to it at a minimum. And it does get a little convoluted, but if you want to animate these characters and you don't just want to draw them for a model sheet, these are the types of things you have to think of in advance. So I will say that on that one.
hair is hard to track. Hair is very difficult to track. You brought up Hair Love earlier.
Mhm,
And that's a great example of a show where the hair
mhm,
was next level
mhm.
innovation. It was
It's the
innovative.
style. It's the star.
Yeah.
It's the star of the show. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah. I may have skipped over some things here because we kind of scrolled down, but I mean, there's so much to go through here. Let's see, we stopped there.
I would recommend maybe spending 2 to 3 minutes per design so we can
Hmm.
get through enough. Yeah.
Hmm. Do we have enough time?
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
Okay. Um, So we got this one here. I'm looking for guidance in making my characters and scene more cinematic, and also interested in tailoring my portfolio to a range and versatility help my portfolio stand out when applying for various jobs. Okay, so Vivian would like to, I mean, that's really cool. Let's see, cinematic, hey? That's a very specific request for your portfolio, I think, for cinematic. I mean, more dynamic poses, for sure. I will say on that. That's a note. There's I can't really get into a drawer with that, short of just scribbling something down. That won't make sense. So I will just state that have your portfolio show more dynamic poses. I saw the tennis players, and there's a bit of a theme here. Those are some cool prop designs. I mean, I'm looking at your portfolio and saying, right now, the props are really singing. There's some cool yoga poses. That's really sweet. Yeah, more poses, more. Yeah, that's how I would have your portfolio stand out for sure on that one. Okay.
Yeah, and even for props too, that's a big one. I saw the walkie-talkies. You've got like a conceptual design for walkie-talkies.
Hmm.
It'd be great to see other views instead of just the front view. Usually with a prop, we'll have like
Yeah.
two or at least three views, especially if something handheld. Cell phones, if you think about a cell phone, where's mine? It's like
Hmm.
it's like all these views. Sometimes we build them in 3D so that we can get any angle that we want if it's really used in a show. So feel
Hmm.
free to add more
Yeah.
applications.
Okay. Well, I did touch on how we have to provide rotations and different angles for sure. So yeah, and then this person is sharing some of their cartoons they've done. These are great. Didn't see a question with that one, so I'll just move on to this one. Hi, I'm rendering. I'm improving on. I want to improve on rendering illustrations. These are from a South American sci-fi personal project I am working on. Any feedback, resources are appreciated. Okay. Well, we have some lovely painterly sketches here. I'd like to see. Oh, geez. I really like the style of the shoebox style that you did for that. Rock exploration, very cool. Good use of color there. You know what? I wouldn't mind seeing a different tone mixed in with these violets for sure. You have some more strength with prop design. And as Lindsay said, if you were to move into production with these, you'd want to see some different angles. So you might want to pick one or two of these props and do a rotation with it. There's some good advice. But yeah, yeah, I love this. It's a little bit of a workshop. Maybe the workshop is messy. Maybe this is a messy worker. I don't know. But maybe you want to have like some stuff, some extra little bits and bolts on the ground. It could help tell the story a little bit. Right now, it looks like a beautiful workshop, but um, I would want to be intrigued at what's being designed, and maybe there's something on the desk that's sort of half been created. Here we go. I was asked to post some stuff, but this was a cover page I drew for. This person is that's cute, but there was no question with this one. Did I miss it?
That one was actually supposed to go into the animation channel. So
Okay. Okay. Moving right along. Okay. Hi there. I'm a character designer, still working on breaking into the industry. That's the portfolio, second page. I feel stuck as what to do with my portfolio. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember looking. I took a peek at these. These are beautiful poses. But you're stuck. You're stuck. Okay. I would like to see some more dynamic expressions. I'm doing it here with this character, but the Milo character, maybe he's supposed to be angry or just disgruntled about something. I might want to see what he looks like happy. Like if you tickled him, what kind of a face would he make? Just to show some variety and all. That's all. These are beautiful character designs, but I'm just thinking if you're stuck with this, maybe slap some character on this one. I think you kind of did here. Yeah, not too much there. Not too much I would add there. You're coming along. You're coming along. Very cute lineup of characters. Yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more, a few more
How do you
characters
feel?
there.
I have a question. If you go back to the Monique team leader, how do you feel about having that many designs on one sheet of paper to show everybody? As I know that other people have opinions about artwork being too crunched.
Are you referring to this slide, this page?
The colored version of her. It's got expressions. Yep, that's the one. Like you were talking about negative space earlier. Is the like would you want more negative space here or is this okay?
Negative space for me here isn't an issue because of the way that these designs are being displayed. Negative space, I mean, if I jumped into Photoshop, the mistake. If I was to, yeah, if I was to say there was anything, I don't have too much of a problem with this. The negative space really helps the characters, the poses read and stand out. In terms of, let's see, that's a good model sheet page. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have too much there. I don't want to overstate anything for sure. We'll move on a bit though. Character designs from my recent site, plus a lineup of rough sketches. I posted these to one of my Discords. Didn't get much feedback as I'd hoped. Well, want some feedback on these. So it's interesting when someone wants feedback, I'm like, okay, I can give you some, but I don't know, I want to overstate. Yeah, so you got the line art and the color treatment. Showing your process is great. I think now what I want to see a rotation. I want to see a different expression. These are posed to be rotated in that sort of static pose, which is fine for like a rotation. But they all seem to be cut from the same mold. Like it's a doll that you just redressed, which is fine. But to push it a little bit or a lot, I would like to see them jump or run. Like pick any one of these characters and put them in a running pose or a seated pose. That would be my best advice there. This person came back and worked on their volumes a little bit. Yeah, okay. So let's move on to the next one here. Some work that I've done that I've yet to add to my portfolio. It's really nice. Cool. Some of these characters are getting lost in the background a little bit. I would probably mute or put a filter or just dial back the background a little bit, and let's punch these characters into the foreground some more because they're posed wonderfully, and I want to see the space around where they're posed for sure. Danny Phantom and Molly McGee crossover. Nice. Yeah, this is definitely looks like a cool idea. I'd like to see some more exploration with these characters, maybe a pose sheet for each of these characters. That's what I would like to see there. And this is an expression sheet for a short film. Lovely. I mean, I see that, and then I see that you're doing a short film, and I want to see where this character is headed. So I would like to see a rotation, a full body rotation, maybe like a 4 pose rotation or 4 angles. Yeah, for sure. Maybe I don't know if this the short film only has this one character in it, but maybe there is another character we'd like to see alongside that one. Great. And we talked about this one. You guys have any suggestions for how I can conclude these poses? Well, we touched on Rose's fiery redhead, so I'm going to try and help out another artist here real quick.
Sounds good. We're getting down to the last one or two, Chris.
We are. There's way more. Okay. Okay. So we're here. Here's the main character, Queenie. She's a hybrid in cute. I do want to say there's some proportional. I know you're probably foreshortening the arms here, but I'm having a tough time reading it, and I think the reason that it's not reading as a foreshortened arm and that it's a little too short is because the shape of this clasp, I forget what you call them on the wrists. There's a word for that. They the cylinder should be a little bit more rounded in perspective coming forward. The pose that the character is in just feels like the arms are a little too stumpy and short, and I think it's because there's an attempt at foreshortening there. And I would either just drop it down and to so it's not foreshortened, or I would try and flesh out the cylinder shape of that arm a little bit better. But that's about it. Moving right along. Okay, this person. Yeah. Did we already look at this one? No, we didn't. What do you think of this character so far? Yeah, that is coming along. I would like to, as I mentioned with the previous artist, it feels like, I know you're drawing these sort of orthographically in perspective, but it feels like this is too small. I know that it's further away in space, three-dimensionally, but I feel just something about that feels like it could be a little bit closer, because when I look at it, it feels like that arm is shrunk. Yeah. Maybe don't have the arms splayed out as far. They could be not up against the torso, but and they can still be spaced out a bit, but maybe just drop the arms down a little bit. That might help. We have some character and prop designs here, and let's see. Cool. I'd like to see maybe something more than just glasses. I think for props, when we're showing props in our portfolio, don't pick one prop and do like a bunch of stuff in it. Yes, right, bangle or cuff. Thank you, the person that corrected me on the bangle. I think it was cuff. Yeah, so the glass here, these are great, but I would pick one or two, and then I would render and color the heck out of it and put that in your portfolio. Because if you're, is this for portfolio? Yeah, so I would just pick one or two of these. You kind of did it here where you've got a bunch of different types of prop elements, so that's great. So it sounds like we have a prop artist in the making here. And then her characters, or their characters, are, yeah, these are really cool. I think I'd like to see some variation in line thickness. There's a very consistent line thickness throughout that might work here. The volumes of the face and, oh, I lost it. The volumes of the face here seem to be, need a little bit of work. They're a little rough here. I might round out her eyes. I don't know if you can, hopefully you can see my cursor where I'm pointing, but yeah. I'd work on the facial elements here a little bit more. The eyes need some work. And the line quality, the line just looks, it's a clean line, but it's just, there's something that could be plussed up. There's that word again about that line, and I think adding some thick and thin lines, some variation in your line weight would really help on these. Let's just put it that way. But yeah,
I like the stances on these characters though. Like you were talking about twinning. There's no twinning
mm-hmm.
here. They're really interesting. Like all of them have unique poses that are actually adding to the character's like background story. Like you can see it, especially the girl with the thing in her sock. That is
Mm-hmm.
that's a me move. I put things in my sock all the time.
Yeah. Well, where else are you going to put that, right? No, you're on a good path here. I will say, as I did with one of the other artists, there's some anatomical adjustments that it looks like the arm, just from the way it's posed, is a little too, or a lot shorter than it should be. I would have her hand out here a little bit more, or I would have the bend in the elbow a little bit higher, have her arm out like this. That's what I might add for that. But yeah, yeah, it's coming along really good for sure. Let's move on to another one real quick.
I gotta give you
Um,
one last one, Chris. Make it your favorite.
is this okay? Last
Last
one?
one.
Well, from when I feel like when I went through here the other night, let's just stick with, where was it? Okay, hang on a second.
It's all right. The last one. You got a couple seconds to figure it out.
Five, four,
There's a
three,
big
two,
one.
one. Okay. Liking this.
Armageddon.
Sorry?
Oh, I just said Armageddon. I don't even know if that made sense.
Yeah, this is, okay, they said it's quite rough, but you want some advice on how to turn these characters into something more applicable to TV animation. This is a great question, and this is a good one to sort of end on because this is a great concept. These are the types of drawings that we would like to use as a previs jumping off point for characters. And since we're coming to the end of this and I don't have too much time to do a draw over, I will I will say start taking fleshing out the volumes and the proportions of these characters and come up with a consistent line style that you think will work for these, and just start working on some line art for these characters. You have some rough color in here and some muted tones, but that's you can apply those into the color stage as well after you flesh out or you tighten up the line quality. Um, yeah, some of the poses that I showed in my demo early on for the here, let's if you keeping this in mind, we go to these characters here, and we look at how this artist has sort of just dynamically, like this character is running in space, and this character um, standing here and like reciting spells from a book. The angle that the head is pitched at, the way that the angle here is here. The legs are going one way and the torso is bent the other way, kind of a contrapposto pose there. It's a bit of a lot. That's a bit of a life drawing term. And then just kind of think about to the last person whose art I was talking about. Think about characters like this and how you can apply principles from these dynamic, strong poses into these characters. They don't have to be the same poses because the pose is just whatever you want it to be, really. Yeah, and that's all I would say on that. Does that have enough time? Is there another question there?
That's perfect. If anybody has any questions, like last minute questions, if they want to ask Chris, feel free to drop them in the chat to either myself or him. The presentation's over, so he'll be able to keep his eye on the chat now.
Was
But
there a
I do want to
typo in
say,
that last question? There was bro dot dot dot.
yeah, I don't know what that meant. I mean, I know what it means, but I don't know what it meant as if it was a question. Um,
Oh, oh, okay.
Oh, nice. Yeah, there's definitely a couple people, and I noticed Fresh Tea just dropped their portfolio piece, and it's very strong, but you missed the deadline. So I'm going to put a note in the chat to say where we left off, and then that way next month we'll go back and start. But you guys can see how fast these processes go. Part of your job of submitting work for a professional to look at is you always want to consider time. And I think this was because this is the same thing that happens with demo reels. We and anybody that's reviewing work, it takes so much time to look at things and to go into the depth and the details that you want, that you really want to make it easy for the professional. So and part of, like, we're on our first month, so we're kind of learning how to do this quickly too. So I'm going to be taking notes from today's session and applying them to like the next ones, essentially, to see how do we get more feedback to you guys, because I know that's kind of one of the reasons why you're here. Did we have a question? Did you do for a beginner designer, how many passes would it take from look target to final design? Is it possible to lose the design after a certain number of passes with clutter or line work?
I missed the first part. Sorry, Linz, can you
A long
read that
question.
again?
I think there's two questions in there. For a
Okay.
beginner designer, how many passes would it take from look target to final design? Is there like a standard? Like how many
You know what?
how many revisions? That's the word that we would use. Revisions. We usually have like take one, take two.
Yeah, the easy answer there is no more than take two. They don't want to keep coming back to you a third or fourth time if you're not getting it right. But also the client reserves. There are other rounds of approvals. There's your art director approvals and there's your client approvals. But I'll just leave it at that and say, yeah, no more than take two or take three.
That's a good question.
Some
That's
clients, it's written into the
not
contract
really
that the
the
showrunners
wrong
are.
number, but I guess that's a professional.
Yeah.
Um, is it possible to lose the design after a certain number of passes with clutter or line work? That I think that can also be applied with, is it possible to lose the original artwork because the concept changes or the vision changes? I'm gonna guess the answer is yes.
I'm trying to find that question. Okay, I didn't know where you were reading it from, but
Oh, it was said to
uh,
me personally.
I didn't catch it. Sorry. Good to know the
Oh,
feedback.
is it possible to lose the design after a certain number of passes, or if does the can the concept just change due to vision change?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes, it can absolutely. There are examples of so many rough stage concepts that look nothing like, and there's a variety of different reasons. There are all sorts of notes and things that come down from on high that involve a complete 180 and having to go right back to the drawing board and everything from the ethnicity, the character. There's characters that we concept out as being like people of color, but then they want to make them Asian, and there's a variety of different reasons that go into that. So you'll end up with a completely different cast of characters. Yeah, it can be night and day. Absolutely, totally different.
I'm also gonna, did you work on Chip and Potato, Chris? Because I remember when Chip and Potato went under an entire, I don't even know how far they were into production, and they changed the entire concept of the show. And so they had to they went back to boards. I think they probably had half their season done, or they were
Yeah.
a couple 3 to 6 episodes in, which is a lot of work.
I was fortunately in a department that did not get affected by that. I was in BG layout, but I know that Joel and Rid, who directed that show, and I'm name dropping here, it doesn't matter, but yeah, the directors were affected by that. It was a bit of a headache, I heard.
It's a tough position to be in um, when that happens. That's why it's
Mhm.
so important to learn how to communicate your vision, which you
Yeah,
can
well,
start doing now uh,
you'll
with
get the triple green light for a variety of different approved designs, and then have them tell you, look, we know we told you, you know, twice
it's
over that
almost
this was approved, but we've got to change it for this reason. It's not testing well. Our pilot didn't test well for this character, so we might have to drop this character. Yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls to that as well. Mhm.
Mhm. Well, I'm going to say thank you so much to everybody that has spent their evening with us, and from wherever you are. And Chris, fantastic job. I learned a lot. I took a whole bunch of notes. I hope everybody else did. And please join us again next week, or not next week, on the weekend. We've got storyboarding with Torin. He's going to go. He's basically going to teach you how to go from script to story, into storyboards, how to read a script, how to take notes, how to pull style from words. So again, communicating vision is such a big part of our job. So we really hope that you'll join us for then. And also, if you enjoyed today's presentation, please share the information, share the news. If you've learned something, bring that to the channel and give back. Because the number one reason, or the number one way to learn something, and it's your job to really internalize what we're learning. That's the difference between going from a pre-professional to a professional, is we've internalized this knowledge to a point where we don't even think it's special anymore, which is a great reason to give it back. So if you're learning these skills and you're catching things in the Discord that we're not catching, please pass it on because you'll only become a stronger artist, and that's the goal for everybody. There's so much room for all of us and all of our artwork. So please help us share all this news, and we hope to see you soon. Have a great night.
Thank you, Lindsay, for having me out. And yeah, thanks to everybody who came along. I really appreciate it. And I just learned that I talked way longer uninterrupted than I should ever do again, but I would be more than happy to do it. It's more
We're
because
gonna
I have a
have you
sore
back,
throat.
Chris.
It's
You're
more
gonna
because I have a
come
sore
back.
throat.
Don't worry. I'm
I'm gonna
getting
have it, I'm
all
gonna
these
drink a nice
messages.
warm tea.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a great night, everyone.